You're listening to the Marginally Geeky Show, the epically geeky book club.
Welcome now to the Marginally Geeky Show. I'm your host for the evening, Eugene Stevens. Tonight I'm joined by Kris, Ray, and Shaun. How are y'all doing?
Good, fine.
I'm sober.
Oddly enough, I knew you were going to be sober for tonight, so I actually am having a beverage tonight. So yeah, it's been a while. And there's not a lot in it, I'll be honest with you. It's just enough to kind of make me feel like, all right, cool. We'll just get a little loose. So anyway.
That's how it starts.
Yeah. Yeah, no joke. This is episode 74. We are reviewing Earthside by Dennis E. Taylor. This is the sequel to Outland, which we have previously reviewed on this show. So if you have not read, number one, if you haven't read the first book, stop now. Go read the first book and then either listen to this and then watch it. Anyway.
If you haven't listened to the first,
I know, right? Like you're on the wrong episode. Like y'all need to get caught up. But yeah, so this is the sequel to Earthside. One of the things I realized when we were going through our new kind of format for this is I didn't have a place in there to kind of, or have anyone somewhat describe what the actual story of the book is, and we kind of just jump in. So I've added that in there. So real quick, here's a quick synopsis. This book does pick up after the first book. In the first book, there's a group of 6 college students that basically figure out a way to create a portal that allows them to go to an alternate Earth. While they're exploring the alternate Earth where human beings have never been, Yellowstone explodes and is starting to cause the Earth to basically fall into a nuclear winter. So they get everyone from the small town that they're in to go over to the other side, and it's them trying to figure out how can we start to survive? How are we going to be able to find more survivors? How are we going to keep going? The second book picks up pretty much right where the other one left off. Our small group has a decent size population, 400 or 500 people, I believe. Most of them are college age students. There are some older people from the local town. They've also found the local infantry is the wrong word I'm looking for, but anyway, the National Guard. They found the local National Guard. They have started setting up some basic, kind of a really basic government, but they're still pretty much in the same position. We're getting close to winter, or we're fall is about to come on, and so they're having to plan for winter. They're trying to figure out how are we going to keep scavenging gasoline or diesel to keep going. How are we going to keep scavenging stuff from the other side? Are we going to have to start planting crops? Are we? They're having to basically rebuild civilization. And in this book, they're running into all the stuff that you would imagine that they would run into. The main character pool has definitely grown from the main 6 people. Some of the other people, the head of the National Guard is actually a major character now, and we get introduced to some new characters as they find new people, as they're expanding their net, looking for new supplies, because they are running out of things like medical supplies and technical supplies, so they can keep building these portals. And so that is the basis of this book. It is a Dennis E. Taylor book, which his MO is basically, what is the term that I always use for the Bobberverse books? It's
resource management porn.
Resource management porn. Thank you, Kris. That's kind of what this is, but there's definitely a lot more, because we're dealing with trying to set up a government, and we're dealing with, instead of a lot of the same version of you, whereas in the Bobberverse, now you're dealing with lots of different people with lots of different opinions. But it comes down to how can we get resources to keep going, to keep building, to keep moving on. So that's the basis of this book. Let's go ahead and start off with our initial opinions. Kris, would you like to start?
Sure.
All right. What was your initial impression of Earthside?
I loved it.
Okay.
I love Dennis E. Taylor. He's one of my favorite writers ever. And I feel like he writes science fiction that is kind of approachable to everybody.
Grounded.
You don't have, like degrees in science, although I do glaze over when it happens, but I don't feel like it's a huge component of the story. It's more of a human story. So I love it.
Ray?
Yeah, I thought it was a great continuation of the story. It kept me interested in what was going on, and I'll discuss the narration later.
Okay. Yes, we're gonna have to talk about that, Shaun.
Yeah, it was like part two of the same book. And Dan Stiller, he's so good at having a huge story broken up into chunks, but it's all the same thing. This was a very logical progression. And even though there's the science is like groundbreaking in this story is not about the science. The science is just kind of just a mechanism to drive the human story. And there's a lot of stories going on in this book, a lot more so than the first one.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I liked it. It was great.
My initial impression changed as I was reading this book. I once again, I do love Dennis T. Taylor. I do love the first book. I really love the first book. But when I initially started reading this book, I was nervous. I was like, ooh, I don't know where he's going with some of these characters, because I have really, I don't want to say fallen in love with, but I have definitely grasped onto some of these characters. Some of the characters in this book are some of my favorite characters that he's created. Bill is definitely one of them. Like if I see myself in any one of these characters, a lot of it I see myself in is Bill. But yeah, and just kind of seeing where things were going. Shaun is right. The progression of this book does make sense. It's not like they're taking any wild turns or whatever, but it's just like, oh yeah, I didn't think about that. What if they ran into that? This is kind of scary. But yes, as by the time the book, about 3/4 of the way through the book, I'm like, nope, I feel it. I'm back in the groove. Let's keep going. Can't wait to finish this one up. So, yeah. So that was our initial impressions of the book. Sorry, phone wants to keep shutting off here. All right. Any favorite parts of the book? Anything that kind of stood out that you were just like, yeah, I really like that scene. I know one right offhand. If let me go. There is a scene. Monica, aka Gunzilla, who is honestly kind of my book crush, and which is so funny because she is like she is a gun-toting, just like she is a hard ass, but I love her character because she knows what's right and wrong, and she doesn't give a shit. She's just like, no, you are going to do what's for the right, for the best of all these people. I'm going to protect my friends who are basically my new family, and if you get in the way, I will put you down. Not figuratively, literally, I will put you down if that's the case. And so there's a scene where people are bringing up that, hey, there's certain people in the group that are not pulling their weight, and they're just kind of being lazy or whatever. And she's like, I have a plan. Does it, she goes to Collins, the guy who's in charge of the National Reserve, and he's just like, oh God, I'm scared, because he knows her plans. And so she goes and they find this. She goes and stakes out this girl who is going to the doctor and comes out and is kind of very happy. There, mentions that a little bit. And then she goes and finds this douchebag that's laying around, and she's just like, hey, you need to get off your ass and start doing more work. You're eating more than you're outputting or whatever. And like kicks him off the chair, and he gets up to try to like take a swing on her, but she, steps back or whatever. And she's just like, are you going to pull your own weight? And he's like, you can't tell me what to do, bitch. And she's like, all right, cool, fine. So the four guys like show up out of nowhere, pick him up, and they're just like, all right, well, we're going to haul your ass out, and we're going to throw you on the other side. And you can figure out how you're going to survive, in basically a dying world. And then someone else mentions, well, you're being a fascist. And she's like, wait, hold on. So now you volunteered. So you're going to do your work in his work. Is that what it is? And the guy's like, no, I don't. It's not what I said. Okay, well, fine. Then you pick 10 other people, and we're all going to figure out how all this works, because because everyone has to pull their weight. This is not the other world. Like, you have to pull your weight, or you are going to die, or you're going to cause other people to die. And when no one wants to step up, then she kind of turns around to the guy, and she's just like, look, asshole, you can either pull your weight and make a better world for your child, or you can eat the food that belongs to them. And that's what he's like, what? And then ropes back in. The young lady shows up. Sure enough, it's his girlfriend. She's pregnant. And she, it's basically like, look, dude, it's time to grow up, period. You have to grow up now. And it sets a precedent with everyone else. And they're kind of just like, yeah, hopefully it wasn't just some other people kind of got the message and kind of got off their butt, and it's going to go back to what it was. But you did a damn good job. Like you got the message across, and no one questions it or anything else. So that was one of my favorite scenes in the book, was just how that was handled. Was instead of we're just going to let him keep being whatever, or we're just going to get in this confrontation. It's like, no, I'm going to make an example of you. So. And what was really fun was afterwards, the guy who called her a fascist, he was in on it as well. And they're just like, oh, by the way, good job on you for sticking your neck out and making it look like I was going to throw you to the wolves as well. So anyone else have a scene that kind of stuck out to them?
I liked all the alternate Earths they started to find.
Oh, yeah.
Really interesting. Nazi Earth because I mean there was a TV, and I can't remember what it was called, but they did a TV show where
Wasn't Sliders?
no, it wasn't Sliders.
That was Neanderthal. No, the something tower or something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
No,
but
that's
no,
right.
but Germany had won the war.
Man in the High Tower.
That's it.
Yeah.
So what North America would look like if Germany actually won the war. So I find that fascinating in all the different Earths. I don't understand anything Kevin said about the science. I just was like, oh, it's just super cool that they could actually, like, Dennis knew in a way to write it so it sounded totally legit. And I was like, yeah, sure, I totally believe that. So I liked that. And I liked I like Richard. I really like Richard.
I do too.
He's one of my favorite characters. And it's funny. I really like the way he wrote Jensen, because it was just like, that's kind of the level of creep I can tolerate. Like, that's max capacity.
Right.
But I like the way he wrote it, because that would happen. How would that not happen? Even though you only have 500 people, there's going to be a person who is unhinged enough to do that, especially when their meds start running out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they have to start rationing things. It starts doing shit to your head. But I like the way he wrote Jensen. It was just creepy enough.
I agree. Ray, any particular scenes stick out to you?
For me, it's the voting. I really appreciated how they did the voting and made sure everybody was like, no, listen, if we're gonna punish somebody, everybody's vote, it counts, and we'll go with the majority rules. And so I thought it was good.
And see, that's how. So I don't. If you're watching this episode and you haven't watched previous episodes, sorry, go back. But yeah, I'm the head of the Austin Ghostbusters, and I just kind of fell into the position, and so that is my style. Is like, we have a small group, kind of as a deciding group, and my vote's not any important than anyone else's, even though I kind of kept the group going, several years when it was kind of just me and Lainey. But no, it's like, I'm not smarter than everyone else. I've never pretended to be, and I've never said I am. So yeah, like, everyone's vote should count. So I agree. And it wasn't just the voting on how to punish the two individuals. It was also, all right, well, we obviously have to come up with a government. How are we going to go about doing this? So
Yeah. But those were really good conversations, and I appreciate that they're going through that and being like, okay, listen, like, we're not just keeping with the old system that we had, because guess what? It got fucking corrupted pretty quickly. So we're going to all agree on what we're going to be doing here. And then when they bring the other group in to deal with it more, it's like, oh, different points of view coming in now. And maybe their way isn't the way it should be. So
the Jerrys, the
Jerry.
We'd all technically be Jerrys in that.
I was gonna say, technically we're all Jerrys. We're gonna have to get into that here in just a minute. Anyway, Shaun, any particular scenes that kind of stuck out to you?
The same one as yours, actually, when how Monica handled it, and it was fun to listen to and watch and all that. But what made it so memorable is that talking to the guy that said fascist at the end, that he was in on it. That was like the icing on the cake.
Yes.
It was so well planned out. So
even though I feel like this group of people, the 6 initial characters, are all very smart characters, but they keep running into fallacies that any human's going to run into. People are going to get tired or bored or lazy from time to time. And it doesn't matter how, like, in the first book, there's a part where it's just like, well, I'm just going to step away from a second. And of course, the 1 second you step away is when a direwolf jumps through a portal to our world. It's that type of thing. So, I feel like all the characters are smart, and they've been smart about it. And they even say, that's one of the things about Bill that I like so much, is he's like, I've watched all these movies and I kept, yelling at the TV, you're an idiot, you're an idiot. And now that I'm running through it, I'm like, maybe you weren't an idiot. Like maybe, until you've been there, you don't really know. It's, it's really easy to armchair quarterback this when your life's not really on the line. So, let's see here. Was there any least favorite part? I didn't really have one. I mean, it was definitely, I don't think there was any least favorite part. I liked where it was exploring, and it to me, it seems like it literally is this undiscovered country that they are slowly chipping away at. And it's not just in one area. It's like we make a little further, we got to figure out resources. Okay. Well, now we have to figure out how we're going to manage the group. And it's slowly expanding. It's this push and pull and, waxing and waning back and forth between what is the most important thing. And it's something they keep going back and forth in their meetings is, well, what is the most important thing we got to be focusing on? It's just like everything.
Yeah.
So I didn't really have a least favorite part. Oh no, I take that back. I do have a least favorite part. So it's been a while since the first book has been recorded. Some of the character voices have changed.
There, it wasn't just me.
Yeah, no, it was not just you. Kevin is the most noticeable of them.
Yes.
And that was,
Like
it was honestly off-putting when I first listened to it. And it's not just because of the voice change. It's also because his character is growing. His character was initially very quiet, didn't really say anything. He wasn't very social. And it even says, like, Outland has done wonders for Kevin. He's started coming out of his shell. So it was a natural progression for Kevin, but that plus the voice change was just, it's like, what's happening here? Like, what happened to Kevin? This is a new character.
Yeah.
Well, it's almost as if they swapped Kevin and Richard. Almost.
A little bit.
Like the voices, I think the voices are swapped. If you listen to the first one and then to the second one, they've almost swapped those two character voices. And they just didn't catch it until like, oh crap, well, let's just keep going.
I don't know if it was easier to listen to this last time that I just did it, but it was almost, I don't know if it's just, if it was me, or I almost wonder if they've done a little bit of some re-recording, because I do run into that from time to time in a book. Like, and unfortunately, sometimes it's not very good. There are parts, especially back in the Bobaverse books, where you could clearly tell they went back in, and especially in a list, and he reads it at a voice like this, and then it's like this, and then it's like this, and it's just like, whoa, like that was clearly cut, paste, inserted, and no one bothered to listen to it. So,
spoiler alert: I am re-listening to Bobaverse right now, and there's a couple of times where it's like, man, that transition just didn't go well.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that was the one thing that just kind of was off. And then, like I said, this last time that I just recently listened to it, I don't know if it was, I've gotten used to it or I knew what to expect, but it didn't bother me as much. But that first time it really threw me for a loop. So, especially because I had just listened to the previous book to prepare for this one. And
that's what I did too.
What? So, well, if no one else has any particular scenes that they didn't really care for, or whatever, we can move on to the next question. Let's see here. Stuck out. Thoughts on the writing? I mean, we've kind of already covered it, but anything in particular?
It's always smart.
Yeah, he's a really, really smart writer. He's really
Dennis D. Taylor. I love everything he does.
Everything he does. He's one of those kind of like loyalty reads. Whatever he puts out, I'll read.
Yeah. It's smart. It's everyday life, but it's at least a different look at it. So. Yep.
I'm not going to ask, would you want to read another book by the author? We already know the answer to that one. Did the book impact your mood? I'm not going to jump in here real quick first. So the first time I read this book, I was like, oh man, it's getting darker. Like, and it's funny it's funny because this is a post-apocalyptic story, essentially. You know, the world that we live in is winding down. Like, even the, you know, and that was one of the things about this second book. There were lots of little interjections from different people from all over the planet giving their little 2 cents. You know, people in Europe and South America, it was just like, you know, yeah, things are finally starting to kind of go to shit here. Like, you know, it apparently things went to shit really quickly in the US, which it would have. But yeah, it's just like, you know, it is affecting everyone, and it's going to cause the planet to eventually collapse, essentially. But given that, the first book was just fun. It was a fun read. And when I first started reading this, I was like, man, it's getting kind of dark. And then, like I said, about 75% of the way through it, I don't know, it just kind of clicked again and it became fun. Like, there are some dire situations. There's some very serious situations. It also brings up some very deep intellectual things to think about, but it's fun. It was a fun read, and and like I said, the second time I read it, you know, I've gone through it once. I know what to expect. I go through it again. I had fun the entire time. So, like I said, I had that initial read that I was just like, okay, I don't know what I'm going through. This is maybe it was me, maybe it was something I was going through. But yeah, like the first time I was a little nervous where things were going, and then the second time I was just like, nope, this is what I wanted. So it's everything I wanted. So, anyone else, did it affect anyone else's mood as they were reading it?
I think because it was my second read through this time, I was excited because I knew it was going to happen. I was just like, oh, it's coming up, you know, that kind of thing. But yeah, the first time I read it, I was just like it was like exciting to see what he was going to have these characters do next, and what he had planned out for the rest of the world he'd build. So yeah, really excited. A little trepidatious with Jensen. I was just like, where are we going with these people? Because I just listened to Scott Meyer, and I was just like,
too much of a creep, huh?
Same? Is this going to be the same? Am I getting an authority guy, or like what's happening? So yeah.
I gotta give him credit because Jensen, that was a slow build.
Yeah, I like that.
That was just a snippet here, a snippet there, and then he really pulled it together.
And I found name him for the longest time.
When I listened to it, I found myself getting frustrated with the decisions that they were making, because I really don't think I would have made the same decisions as the group would have. I'd probably be more of a dictator. Like, you're screwing around. No, you're not getting a trial. I might spare one bullet to end you, or like, yeah, I'll kick you right through without a thought. And I wouldn't give you any supplies. You're done.
I take my Bill comment back and hello, Monica.
Yeah. So I found myself getting frustrated with the difference of opinions that the book was expressing, as opposed to how I would have dealt with it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and like, because there were so many of those situations, like different groups forming and stuff like that. And I gotta get, Dennis was very diplomatic on how he wrote this.
Mm.
And I'm typically the diplomat, but I don't think in this situation, there isn't. This is a survival situation. This isn't a play nice situation. So I honestly don't think this is the way things would have gone. Like, I don't think there would be this voting stuff and all that. Not
if
first.
I was there, I would say yes. But then again, okay. So the other thing is, and he doesn't bring this up, and I understand, dude. I completely understand where you're coming from. I think, and it keeps resting on this, is the fact that because most of these kids are idealistic college students, that's probably why it's happening. If it were people, Jerry's, then yeah, it probably would have been like, no, you clearly did what you did.
Yeah.
Like I said, you can either walk through and deal with the dinosaurs, or I'm going to put a bullet in you. That's your choice, A or B.
Yeah.
So, but no, I get what you're saying.
Anyway, but that left me with a kind of a bad taste in my mouth some points. Like, if I had to stop the book at around that spot, I'd be like, that's wrong. I should have dealt with them.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Most of the questions we've kind of already answered, in our normal stable of stuff. So we may kind of run through some of this. I'm going to go ahead and jump ahead, because when it comes to lingering questions, that's where the conversation is going to be. Let's see. Let's go ahead and talk. Well, we've already kind of talked about the narration. Love the narrator. Narrator's fantastic.
Yes.
It's just this shift of character is kind of the big thing. So it's not as bad as when we went from book 1 to book 2 of The Authorities, though. That was a huge shift in narration for some of the characters.
I found this one worse.
I'm like I said, I'm okay with it now. The first time I read it, though, it was jarring.
Like, I love the narrator,
Ray Porter.
Ray Porter, yes,
you are a great narrator. I love it. But why didn't you listen to what you did the first book, bring it over to the next book? That's all I'm asking, because it didn't even match, and it was jarring, and it took me out of the book for a while. It took me a little while to actually get into the book again and be like, okay, fine, this is Kevin, I guess. He somehow has a new voice, and
Accent anymore.
all of a sudden he doesn't. But like that for me was jarring enough that I was like, wow, like you didn't even go back and listen to yourself before, like at all.
Yeah, I will say though, like because I listened to The Authorities 2 and Earthside back to back pretty much. Way Luke Daniels, he's very good at his voice and everything. He's a great narrator. The way he did the creepy guy, it just made my skin crawl. It was just, I wanted to retch every single time I heard it. And that took me out of the book. But when Ray did Jensen's voice, it was like, he's creepy, but this is something that it's like, it's serious. It's not comical. It's not whatever that was with whatever Luke chose to do. And it didn't take me out of the book. It made me think about what he was doing, and it brought a serious tone to it. And I was like, okay, that's how you do creep. That's how you do creep. Now, whatever Luke did, that was a certain choice you made there. But Ray was much more. I feel like it was.
I think it's the writing too, though. I do think it was the
writing.
writing.
I think if Ray had done that other voice, it would have been way better.
Right, but you're also imagining a guy licking ranch dressing off his fingers with crumpled up potato chips all over it, right? Like that's...
Yeah, but it was like, hello, you're just because I met men like that.
Yes,
like,
you have.
Yeah.
What's interesting is and I didn't catch this honestly until this last reread. Is you start to see how. So as we go through the character, he knows there's a problem. He knows he has a problem. He knows that he's supposed to be on medication and what it does and how it helps him. Because it starts off with just him like noticing where everyone is or whatever, and then he starts getting kind of into the planning or whatever. But like it even talks about, so he ends up killing 3 guys that were basically bullying him.
Yep.
And he saw it as being just unbearable. They were just unbearably torturing him constantly. And later on in the book, when it's brought up that, whenever he kidnaps the girls, they're like, he worked with 3 other guys at one point and they all disappeared. And we've kind of been trying to figure out where the hell, what the hell happened to him a while back. They're like, yeah, they kind of messed with him, but not that bad. Like what's his name? He's one of the original group members. He even says like, it wasn't like they were just kind of goofing around or whatever. He's like, had it been really bad, I would have taken him out of the situation or I would have removed them or whatever. So it's like, either his viewpoint of what was going on, he wasn't seeing how bad it really was, or what the reality was as compared to what Jensen was feeling and thinking was way different than how it was. Because even the little bit of reaction that we get from when he does actually kind of meet up with them and they're just kind of like, joking around with him a little bit. They're definitely not the coolest guys. They're definitely kind of jerks, but it's just like he didn't even, it didn't even cross his mind like that he could have said, no, I can't work with these guys. Put me on someone else. Yeah. And they would have been like, okay, sure. No problem. Like it's not, it's not a factory or whatever. It's, you didn't sign up for this or whatever, but, and then, when he does start to break from reality, like he does have a major break. Like he has these plans of this is what these girls, this is what they want as well. Yeah. And then whenever he gets there, like, that we have, these full things are like, it's like he's looking at me and having a full conversation and then just like, start screaming at me because he's had this whole conversation that didn't go the way he thought it was going to go in his head, and now I'm getting the output from it. So
it's a psychosis, right? Because you look at the who are stalkers, and he was stalking these women, and the narrative that he has in his head versus what's actually happening is like total psychosis, right?
Actually, yeah, I know it's an uncomfortable watch for you, but it reminds me of the Joker.
No,
the movie The Joker. It's very
Yeah.
It was happening in his head, right? And
Oh yeah.
it's that shit. What's reality part, and so that's what it reminded me of in this case.
No, that's a good. Yeah, because
that's a good
what's
way.
portrayed in the beginning of the movie to what we see at the end is like, oh yeah, he was in his own little world. He's way off the reservation.
Yeah.
So a couple other things, just kind of going through the book. So a couple other things I remembered. I also love they decide that they have to go to they've got to go to another town to see that's a little distance off to see if they can collect more parts to build more portals. And they come across this outpost. It's basically they have walled it off with no gate or door or whatever. And they're like, well, we need to get through. And they're just like, if you can get through, you go right out ahead. He's like, well, how about we bring you a couple of deer? There are no animals to be hunted at all. So they're just like, sure, just bring out your magic wand and you just walk right on in with these magic deer and everything will be fine. He's like, sure, no problem. Give me 20 minutes. That scene was fantastic. I love
That was a good scene.
Collins. Is it Major Collins? I don't remember what his title is. But anyway, I love the character. He's fantastic. He works well with the group.
Yes.
And then when they get the older people from the other town to come in, and they are starting to kind of plan the coup, he's just like, I don't report to anyone, but I work with these people. You do not have my backing. Yes, we're the same age and we come from the same world and the same ideology of, established governments and everything else, but I'm with them. There will be, and if you do some shit, like, we're not following you, period.
Yeah.
Which I think definitely stopped their plan to do something. Instead, they got the younger guys who were part of the initial group to actually show their asses.
Yeah.
And and it's funny. I love the fact that he kept referencing everyone. Like, they referenced it 4 or 5 times. They're like, yeah, remember that scene in the second Jurassic Park with the T-Rex tearing ass to San Francisco? That was awesome, but man, that would be horrible if it actually happened. And we actually
Sure enough.
happened, essentially. Yeah. So,
I was gonna say the other scene too that I really liked was the scene of when they get the sniper rifle, and they just kind of appeared on the people. They're like, oh my shit! Like,
yeah,
I love using the portals as part of the like attack and stuff like that. So that was a good scene too.
Yeah. I love the fact after they shoot the big dinosaur with it, and Monica just has found out about this gun and she's over there like cooing over it, and Bill even makes the comment, "She didn't touch me like that." Like, that that was hilarious. That was laugh out loud. He even says, yeah, all the soldiers laughed out loud too. They were like, so but yeah, like I said, there were lots of scenes in this book. So we get to the group is trying to figure out how we're going to go government wise. And the problem that they've run into is we have leftovers from the initial coup that happened in the first book. That is a subgroup here as well. But the older people that they have come across from this town, when they show up, when Collins sends them back, him and Matt, that's something else real quick. Let me sidetrack on this real quick. I feel like there was character growth for 4 of the 6 characters.
Yeah.
I don't feel like Matt and his girlfriend, Aaron, really had a lot to do. And I almost wonder if it's like, okay, well, they kind of take a back seat in this one. Maybe in the 3rd book, there'll be more for them to do.
Yeah.
It's possible, yeah.
I like that you find out what happened to Aaron's parents, though, that they did get that, and that they did listen to her.
Yeah.
Yeah, I almost cried. I was like, oh, it's her parents. Oh, they're alive.
Yes.
I'm so happy.
Yeah, that was good.
That was a good one.
But other than that, you're right. Like, they didn't have a lot to do with the story at all.
No.
Yeah.
Other than Matt being frustrated again with, like, I get it, everything's a priority, okay. Like,
yeah. I have to ask, because of the people that are on this panel with me, how did you feel about the scene with the Canadians that were just like, I'm fucking hungry. I'm gonna kill this goose. I don't care what happens. And then it's like, nothing happened. So
no,
sorry, geese.
If we had the opportunity, all of us would kill those.
Oh,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Fucking cobra chickens.
Cobra chicken.
If it was a beaver, okay, I might have to like it's a peaceful beaver. Okay,
Yeah.
They're
you know,
cute. Fucking
geese.
Cobra
Fucking
chicken.
geese. Yeah, they're all gone.
I would.
Mm.
So anyway, we get this older group that comes into town, and we're getting to the point where we've had a couple of things. We've had this bully that's beat the hell out of several people, and so they have their first trial. One of the things where Kevin like steps up or whatever. But anyway, and then we have a trial, we figure it out. I do like going back to kind of what you said, Shaun. I understand where both the cop and the military were just like, listen, we've got to do this the right way. Like, yeah, I'd like to shoot him just as much as you would, but if we're going to try to set up a government, we got to do this the right way. We got to start out the right way. And then we come across Psychopath, and we have to have a second trial. And all while we're doing this, we're now thrown into, okay, well, we need to start building a government we need a government right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the ideas that's put forward by another character that I like, Yoshi, I like the character Yoshi, but he puts forth the idea, and he even says, I knew it wasn't going to fly in the end, but he puts forth the idea of I can't remember what that neotocracy, and the idea is that instead of having a minimum age to hold government position, you can be a maximum of 40 to hold government position.
Yeah.
As someone speaking as 45 years old, I can honestly say yes, but maybe 45 or maybe 40 is a little on the young side.
A little bit, yeah.
And the reason I say that is because it's only within the last 5 years that, not that I've ever really entertained the idea of going into politics. Believe me, I'm not entertaining the idea of going into politics. But I could see where if there was a point in my life where I would think about it, it would have been within the last 5 years. Like I had to get to a point in my life where I'm just like, all right, I've got a pretty good beat on my life and my family and everything else. And I see the shit that's going on. No one else is stepping up. Maybe this is something for me to step up on. So I could see 40 is a bit young. Now, granted, the situation they're in, there's not a lot of people who are too much higher above that. And yet I also live in a country where an 80-year-old man who is the head of, the head of the subgroup in the House, literally went to give a speech earlier this week and literally just like froze up, like almost like he was having a mini stroke. It was apologized for, and then he came back out and continued his speech. But it's just like you could tell something was not right, and it's just like, yeah, the two guys that were about to run for president apparently in the United States of America next year, both of them will qualify to be the oldest president ever. Like, if we elect the old guy, he'll still be the oldest president. If we elect the slightly younger guy, he will grow to become the oldest president. Like, it's ridiculous. We are in a gerontocracy. So I understand this. Personally, I would put it at maybe closer to 60.
Yeah.
And even then I would be like, no, you need to go through some medical training and make sure that you're all cognitively there and healthy and everything else. And if you are, then maybe you can keep serving. But
I think it's more that, okay, so we're all in our 40s and we have a whole lot of hindsight with us. We've got wisdom just from years and things like that kids in their 20s and when we were in our 20s don't have. But I think when you get older, what sometimes can happen, especially when we reach our parents' age, my parents are both in their early 60s, is that you stop remembering or really empathizing what it was like to be that young. And you will never be that young at the time it is now.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't relate. So you stop relating. And it's all these young people, they don't know they're all this, which has been going on for millennia, by the way. That's nothing new. And what happens is, you stop relating, you stop caring, and you start thinking that they just don't get it. And you stop listening to them. And it's like they have innovative ideas because they're this age now. And you never were. So how would you know? You don't know. This could be the best idea that there is. And you're just solely basing on the fact that they're 21 and you think they know nothing. Like we have neighbors here who are in their 80s and they're so cool because they ask him, You talk to our neighbor for like an
Yes.
hour about our electric car.
Yeah.
And our neighbor across the street, you know, like he's in his mid
70s,
70s and he's talking to us about art and just, you know, life like that. And it's those people who, you know, you can respect and you want to engage with, and you take you're more likely to listen to somebody who's going to listen to you too. If they totally write you off because of your age, it's like, well, fuck you. I'm going to write you off because of your age.
Yeah.
It goes both
And I
ways.
know people our age that have already hardened down to that point. It's like, nope, this is my mindset and this is where I'm going, and it's not changing.
It
So
sucks.
there's two things. One is that I fear somebody who's in their 20s who wants that position. I question what they want it for, right? So if they're wanting to be the leader of the group, I'm a little concerned at that age as to what they want it for.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always considered that way. The second part of that is I never ever agree with one person being the leader. It takes a group. You need a diversity of thought, and that's true with anything. Like if you actually want a better outcome, you need to have a bit of a challenge to the way that you're thinking in order to come up with a better solution in the long run.
Mm-hmm.
So a diversity of thought is needed. So you would need somebody who's from the older group, somebody from the younger group, and you probably need a trio of people that are the head. And that's why the first book works so well, is because you had the 5 people working together. And so you should continue that in whatever the new regime is. And that's why I disagree with what our particular politicians are doing, because one person making decisions, I understand it's not actually one person making a decision, but technically we have one representative. It's not the way it should go.
Yeah, it's funny. I actually was having this conversation over this past weekend with one of my fellow Ghostbuster people. Was like, I've read lots of different books and stuff on it, and it comes down to the question. It's like, well, does becoming a politician or gaining this type of power make you not? We're not going to say evil. We're going to say not good. You're not a good person.
Mm-hmm.
Or is it that people who are not power hungry? Let's say power hungry. Is it that this position makes you power hungry, or is it that power hungry people just naturally go for that position? And yeah, honestly, I don't think there's a clear answer on it. It's there are definitely some people who are just clearly power hungry, like my previous superintendent, that was like, clearly you want to be a politician. That's how you handle stuff.
Yeah.
You're smarmy as all shit. But then, like, I have met politicians that are like, yeah, I got into this because I got tired of getting screwed as the little guy, and no one else seemed to be a good fit for this job. So I was just like, fuck it, I'm going to do this. And it kind of like some of like Richard's position, which is one of the reasons I like Richard so much as a character, is he's just like, please vote me out, please. Please vote me out. Those people, doesn't matter the age. And I understand your comment about being 20. It's like, why is it you really want this position? If it's because, well, there's no one else to do it, so I'm going to step into it, but please vote me out, I'm okay with. But yeah, the people are just like, nope, this is what I was made for. It's like, I don't know.
That's a lot of external validation.
I'm questioning your ambition.
Yeah,
exactly. Yes. So yes, and so they have this vote, and the older people don't like how it goes, and we have this coup, and Monica throws the beat down on some people, and they basically say, all right, we found it. Oh, that was something else that was interesting, talking about the other Earths and stuff. With the portal technology, we had a step forward with the portal technology, because now we can take a tube or something and put it between the worlds, and as long as it's there and it's staked down, it's fine. Like, we can actually go through this, so we don't have to have all these these portals. We just have to find a way to do it. And I thought it was really interesting, their idea of well, how are we going to do this so it's not dangerous? Like, how are we going to make sure T-Rex doesn't come and eat us while we're trying to do this? And I'm like, well, we'll put it underground. And I was like, duh. I would have probably never thought of that, but duh.
I had a really hard time visualizing that one.
Isn't it all? I didn't get of it.
I understood what they were trying to do, but the descriptions and all that, I could not visualize what
I got
they
it.
were
So
actually doing. Like, I understood the tube thing and all that.
Yeah. But yeah, so essentially they're putting the tube down into the ground so nothing can get to it, and opening it to the other world so they can just basically because the thing is, remember, you can't cut through anything that's in the previous world. Like even grass will keep you from doing whatever you need to do. And so they were putting it down there so that they could use it basically as a stepping off to different worlds. And to the point where it was interesting because they were talking about, trying to put, go check out some other worlds. And they're like, well, we'll collect a little bit of air from this place and then we'll vent it in this other world. And then we can dump it in the third world so that it's decontaminated and stuff. And I'm just like, okay, y'all are thinking, you've really thought this out. So Dennis, good job on that. You've definitely thought this out.
Yeah, I did like that vacuum Earth is like, it's just not there.
Yeah, there's and it was kind of interesting. Some of the worlds, it was like, okay, well, this one is we had the dinosaurs, we had the Nazi thing. I was like, ooh, okay. And I'm so glad when they were just like, did anyone want to do that? And it's like, yeah, there was like maybe 5 people, and the rest of and it was just kind of curiosity. The rest of them were just like, no, we've all watched too much science fiction. I know how this goes.
I like the pipe that wound up in its own universe.
Oh yeah, that was something else, and I almost wonder if that's going to come back later on.
Yeah,
like talk about a horrible way to go, just to end up in a different universe or something. So, all right. So, did you have any lingering questions from the book that you're still thinking about? I'm going to let someone else go first because I've got quite a few. Anything? Anyone?
Do I have lingering questions?
Do we have someone that speaks German?
No. Yeah.
In the group.
Good point.
Yeah. I'm interested how Krista, who's in charge of the medical side, or at least was she voted in? I can't remember, but she was before the vote. How they're going to deal with all these births, because before modern medicine, 1/3 of all women died in childbirth. So without all of those modern things, how is that going to go? How is he going to write that into that? Because it's like, was it like 12 women are already pregnant?
Yeah.
And she keeps predicting more. And that will happen.
And higher loss of
and higher loss. So how's
that? And once again, college students.
That was one of the questions. And then how Bill and Monica are going to wind up. I don't think they're going to stay together. I think they're going to break up. And
see, I want them to stay together. I think they're.
I just think they're a little too.
She's a little different. Too aggro.
I think she's just going to get bored with him.
We'll see.
Yeah, and that they might find another colony of survivors when they go back to Omaha. I think they might find people, but I want them to go back to Omaha.
I'm also curious. So every story you need to ramp it up just a little bit in the next one, right? That's so my concern, especially when they brought like Bubbleverse back, and how are we going to add more tension now? So this one's good because they've got the different worlds that they're going to. I'm curious if he'll ever introduce another set of travelers.
As in, because I mean, they did say in the first book multiple times, we can't just bury this. We can't just walk away because in 6 to 8 months, someone else will probably also figure it out.
And that's what I'm wondering is, do we come across at some point another group that has figured out in a different world?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Multiple world.
And then come and they somehow meet. Mm-hmm.
That would be interesting.
Do you escalate it at that point, right?
Right.
Yes, the others.
Yes, the others. Oh, by the way, did everyone enjoy the comment about, I wonder what's on this planet? Well, I'm sure it's humans, unless it's giant walking meerkats.
Yes, I love that.
So call back to the Bubbleverse books.
Yep.
Yes, the medical stuff. Okay, so and once again, because we are exploring all of these different ideas of how we would continue on with the civilization. And I brought this up, I think, when we were reviewing the first book. What is the minimum population to keep human society going genetically? Mm-hmm. And I think they've got that number. Now, granted, some of the people are older and not necessarily can contribute to the population, but I'm just like, at what point are they going to reach something where they're going, well, we don't have the genetic diversity to keep going as a species unless we keep finding additional people. Where are we going to get to? And how dedicated are we to continuing the human species? Because if just voting stuff is going to be difficult, how are we going to be like, so every woman needs to have 3 kids from 3 different guys so that we can get genetic diversity set up. Like how, like, are we going to get to that point in the series? Are we going to get to a point where like that even is a consideration? That was something that was kicking around in the back of my brain. Of course, where the worlds are we going to go to now that they figured out that they can use different worlds as stepping stones to other worlds? You know, that kind of leaves it really far open. The new government, I like the fact that they voted in. It's kind of like a 1-to-1 vote. It's not, voting by, group, by a group or what. I also love the fact that they specifically said, if anyone tries to form a party, you're out, period. No question asked. Like that has fucked up most stuff up to this point.
Yeah.
Y'all have just the opposite problem we have. Y'all have too many parties.
Too many.
We have 2 parties that have basically rigged the system so we can't have a third. So it's I love that idea. Collecting knowledge before it disappears. I thought about this in the first book and they keep talking about it, but it's something that really concerns me because they're like, does anyone in the new town know anything about like hardcore woodworking or blacksmithing or anything? Like those would be really useful things. And if they can't start getting to libraries and trying to collect books that have this information, especially as the world keeps deteriorating, that's going to be very, very useful and almost essential knowledge that they're going to need to be able to rely on.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was one of the major concerns I had was, hey, y'all need to, I know y'all have, bandages and medicine and food. I understand that's all top level stuff. But right underneath that, by a hair, is maybe you should start collecting some different how-to books, like the handyman's book around the house would be a great start. So, let's see here, collecting knowledge, keep humans going, genetic diversity. So I talked about all that stuff. I love the fact that they talked about the different. There were lots of different people, and I could definitely see this. It's like we're on the brink of humanity falling apart on the other world. We're trying to literally bootstrap a new world. And you've got people who are debating whether or not we should go with, a socialist government versus a communist government. And it's just like, shouldn't there be some trees y'all should be chopping down or whatever? I love the fact that a lot of people were just like, well, they even said like the Green Initiative was, they're like, they sent us a book that was like this thick. And there's like, if we went by everything on here, we'd be living in caves and we wouldn't be able to chop down another tree or whatever. And it's just like, yes, I understand you want to set a precedent, but at some point there's probably a lot of trees. We could probably cut some down and be okay. So, but I can definitely say they're being extremist in any one of those situations. So,
absolutely.
But anyone else have any other thoughts or ideas that were kind of sparked by the book? What would you like to see? Let me throw this one out there. What would you like to see in a sequel? Because please God, let there be a sequel. Is there anything in particular you'd like to see in a sequel?
Richard and Susie's baby.
Okay. So do you want a little bit of a jump ahead or?
I think a jump ahead is needed, like at least 6 months, a year.
Okay.
See how they've made it through the winter, how they come out through the spring, and what's happening. I think if we go right back again, like right after the second book ended, I don't know. It really.
I agree. No, I think a jump ahead, even if they jumped into winter, that would be an interesting situation to see how they're dealing with that.
Ahead a little bit, yeah.
So
I'd be curious if there was a way for them to get around the Earth a little bit more, right? To go into Europe somehow and get some survivors from there, and traveling within the previous Earth. I'd be curious as to how they'd be able to maybe help out humanity a little bit more.
I don't think they'd be
But
able to.
I know that's the thing, is how do you do when they're such a fucked up world?
yeah. So, Shaun, anything in particular you'd like to see in the next book?
It's kind of tricky. Like the way the books are set up, it's totally open ended. Like, unless everyone gets wiped out, or they do discover that other world that is technologically superior to them and will accept them, there's no end. Like that, he could just continue writing this one forever.
Yeah.
So having like to end these books, you'll have to have something huge. So that's what I'm kind of curious, because Dennis, for the most part, doesn't know how to end a series. So I'm wondering if he's going to try doing it with this one or just continue writing on and on and on, which does not bother me in the least. I'm happy to continue listening. The only thing is it's taking away time from the Bobberverse, and I don't like that.
I'll be honest,
No,
you threw something out just now I hadn't thought about. What if they found a technologically advanced universe or alternate year?
The other thing he's got to kind of be careful of is ripping off sliders by accident. It is so easy to like, oh, here's the Cro-Magnon guys, because that was a big human part, like where we wiped out other species to take over.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we didn't succeed. There's your new big baddies. Just that kind of thing. And saying, yeah, that'd be cool, but it's been done. So it's like Nazi world. Yeah, it's been done a lot. That kind of thing. So I'm hoping for new stuff that, like, being a big sci-fi buff, I've seen a lot of this stuff with alternate worlds and stuff. I've read a lot of it. I've just seen on TV and I'm hoping that I don't see a lot of repeats. That's my big thing.
Fair enough. I agree with that.
Yeah.
So if they want to touch on it, like I said, the fact that they saw a Nazi world, they acknowledged that it exists, but it was like, we're not going there.
Yeah, and they moved on.
Yeah, let's move on. So, but yeah, the idea of a more technologically advanced world, that would be interesting. So,
So the way you introduce a technologically advanced world is you open up the portal and it's an ice world, and you walk out and, hi, I'm Bob. We got your signal.
That would be an interesting way to tie things together. And even if we didn't go that far, even if he wanted to go with, because he is touching on a lot of stuff that is happening right now in the political world. I think this is his way to kind of throw out his thought process on some of this stuff. AI is a huge conversation right now. If he wanted to throw something out where maybe they found a world where humanity was eradicated by an AI or something, like, it'd be like, all right, well, cool, see y'all later.
There's a beer can sitting there.
Oh my God. That would be hilarious. Was anything else anyone want to throw out there for this book? Once again, I think we all agree. We all loved it. We can't wait to see another one in the series. Keep going, Dennis.
We have to hit him on again.
Yeah, we probably should see if we could reach out to have him back and stuff. Because if nothing else, it would be interesting to see how his writing style has changed since the pandemic.
Yeah.
And see how, if what all that an effect that had on him, if any.
Well, another story ideas from the pandemic too, right? Like what inspiration is there? And
So we might need to look into that. So all right, well, that is our show for the month, ladies and gentlemen. Let's move on into what else we've been reading. Would anyone like to go first?
Sure.
All right, what else you been reading, Ray?
Yeah.
All right. So I listened to a story called A Dirty Job. It's about a guy who finds out that he's deaf.
Oh, this book.
And he has to start collecting souls. And it was such an interesting concept. They basically call themselves death merchants, and they have to move they sell the soul to the next person that the soul would learn the next lesson from. Thought it was a really interesting and intriguing. And if the guy could get his mind out of the gutter and not talk about sex for about 5 minutes, and maybe not talk about beta males being so fucking masterful at everything, maybe I could actually listen to this book. But fuck me, I got through it, and I'm done. I'm done with the series. So,
Did you return
Fair
it?
enough.
I returned the book because I got through it, and I'm like, the way that they ended, I'm like, okay, you're not done with this, and so fine. I get it. It's not for me. So if you love crude humor and I mean like it's everywhere, like overboard in my opinion.
Mhm.
Maybe you'll enjoy it more than I did. So I mean, a really interesting concept. It is a trilogy. The other one that I listened to that I believe will be my next pick is Howl's Moving Castle.
Mhm.
And it was an interesting read, and I don't want to give too much away because I do believe I'm going to pick it, make it a pick. So,
And I read past chapters. What was it, 7 or 8?
Yeah.
Whatever we make it to.
yeah, it was around there. So it's about an older sister who comes across a witch. The witch turns her into an old lady, and so for refuge, she chases down a castle that's constantly moving to try and just survive.
Is this a Miyazaki? Is this
It's a Studio Ghibli movie, but this
okay?
is written in 1986.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there are some things that happen in this book that I would be very intrigued what this panel would think of. So.
Okay. Cool. Kris, you been reading anything else?
Yeah. So I finished Goblet of Fire. Now I'm reading Prisoner of Azkaban. No, not Prisoner of Azkaban. That's backwards. Order of the Phoenix. I finished the 5th book in the Chronicle of Narnia series called The Horse and the Boy and His Boy. Oh no, it's so racist. So racist. I knew about the Jesus stuff. This book in particular was like, oh my God, I get it. It's Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Super great. And it was really racist. And I know C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien were friends and were kind of writing at the same time. And I'm just like, did C.S. just like look over Tolkien's shoulder and was like, oh my God, I'm going to add that too. That's good too. Because it was a lot of crossover. And I'm just like, oh, C.S. This did not age well. It was terrible. It was the worst one of the series for me. It was awful. And I know Greta Gerwig is now, she's kind of billed to be the director of the reboot of the Chronicles of Narnia series. So I'd be interested to see what she does with that. Mm-hmm. And then I'm reading a book called House of Sky and Breath, which is the 2nd book of the Crescent City series by Sarah J. Maas. This is it's an urban fantasy romance novel, or is it? I don't know what it is. Anyway, there's not enough romance. So much world building, but to the point where there are characters and I'm having a really hard time keeping track. There was a lot of info dumping in the 1st book, which was 800 pages. This one's 800 pages. I'm like, why? First of all, there's a lot going on, but it's almost too much to absorb because things keep happening. And like there was one part where there was like a name drop and I missed it because I forgot what had happened in the beginning of the book. I'm like,
geez, yeah, that's not good.
Oh, it's such a letdown. I'm like, because it was like agent, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, wait, I heard that. Why is that? And I had to go back and I'm like, oh, well, that kind of sucks that I didn't remember it because there was too much information. And I'm not even at page 600 yet. There's still more than 200 pages.
Wow. Okay.
This story, I don't know why. And then she just announced that she's writing a 3rd one of this, and I'm like, why? There's so much, and all the twists and turns, and some of them I know, and some of them I'm just like, that does okay. I don't know. It's a lot. I'm exhausted, but I need to know the end.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Anyway, that's it. And I'm reading Howl's Moving Castle, which I love. The narrator's amazing. She's really, really
She's
good.
One of my favorite female narrators.
She's very good. It's a performance. It's really good.
Shaun, you been reading anything else?
I just finished Peter Klein's 14. It was good. It was a typical Peter Klein book. 14 is the room number in a building. This guy gets accepted into a building in California, whatever, for like insanely low rent. and it's a weird building. All the rooms are all weird, and anyway, it's a whole big thing with doomsday, end of the world kind of stuff. So it was interesting. It was a fairly decent read. And now I'm reading Mickey 7 by Edward Ashton. It kept popping up in my recommendeds, but I never did anything. And then I was in Cole's chapters, and it was in the science fiction section. I'm like, man, I'm seeing this book everywhere. So like I picked it up, and it's like soon to be a major motion picture. I'm like, fuck, I got to read it before a movie because I can't do it the other way around. So yeah, Robert Pattinson is the main character for Mickey 7 coming up, and it's basically way in the future. A colony ship goes out, and it's filled with like the cream of the crop, except for one expendable, and that guy basically they give them all the shit jobs, the suicide missions and all that, and when they die, they just get reproduced with the latest mind scan. So like, oh, we got to do a medical experiment, you're up, kind of thing. So it's usually like convicts and stuff like that. But this guy owed some money to a loan shark and really had to get off the planet real bad. So he signs up for it, and like going through all the list of the stuff that they're probably going to make you do. And he's like, yeah, they're not going to really make me do that stuff. You just have to say that. And sure enough, that's like a lot of radiation death and stuff like that. Anyway, so far I'm about halfway through it. It's really good. I think casting for the movie was wrong. Robert Pattinson is the wrong person for the main character, but it's a neat concept, and I'm really enjoying the book. So I'll let you know how it ends.
All right.
If it's going to be a recommended or not.
I may have found my next recommended. So I read 2 books. Well, I've almost read 2 books. I did read the next book in the Witcher series. I can't remember which this one is called. It's also a complete narrative story. It's not skipping around. It's Blood of Elves. So I read that one. I think I'm going to continue going. I'm pretty sure I'm going to keep going with it. I'm enjoying it. I like the character. I like the characters, except for Yennefer. I still cannot stand her. But not a lot of her in this one, which I was actually kind of glad for. But yeah, you can tell there's stuff happening in the world, and stuff is starting to move forward to like kind of the big event that I think this newest season of the TV show is getting to, which I still haven't watched the first part. I think the second part dropped today. So yesterday. Okay. So I may have to, I need to get caught up on that. Of course, that's wrong show, but there's some TV shows I need to watch. All right. The other book that I'm almost done reading showed up in the Bobaverse fan Facebook page, Facebook group. Someone said, hey, I read this. If you like the Bobaverse books, you might like it. And it kind of gave a little bit of an explanation. I thought, what the hell? We'll give it a shot. You know, I can always return if I don't like it. And it's called Kitty Cat Kill Sat by Argus. The name is just Argus. I'm just like, okay. It takes place way in the future. There's a house cat. She has been transformed by, you're still not exactly sure. At first it sounded like it was by some medical procedures, and now it sounds like there may be some other stuff going on. But she's been transformed. She's basically immortal, and she has become sentient, and she has essentially been running this space station for a couple hundred years, to the point that like humanity is like, there's aliens and stuff on the planet, some weird aliens and stuff, and every so often they put out calls for help, and it's like the most badass space station that's still around. And so like she shoots lasers down and like stops people from getting killed and stuff. But then she's always like, well, I'm constantly running. I'm constantly having to do stuff. You know what sucks is only being about a foot tall, and everything in this thing was built for 5 foot tall people. You know what else sucks is I don't have thumbs. And she ends up waking up a couple of different sentient AIs, and they become her friends. Obviously, this is not hardcore sci-fi, but it is interesting. It is interesting because she also doesn't have the greatest memory, because she is a cat. She understands that, but she's also taught herself over several hundred years. but yeah, there's some things that they haven't gone on yet. Like she keeps saying, yeah, the station is haunted, and you're like, well, what do you mean haunted? Like, is it actual ghost? Because I wouldn't put it out of the realm of possibility in this. I kind of think it's just more like a ghost in the machine, and I've got some theories as to how that's happened. But like one of the AIs is scared of it. It's like there's something in here with me, and I'm not going to that part of the programming. I'm leaving that alone. It's just like, oh, okay. But yeah, it's interesting because for the most part, she stays in character the entire time. Like she will start talking, and you're just like, okay, it's a normal character. Nope. Then I had to jump and do this because I'm a cat, and damn it, I got my tail caught. And it's just like I can't help but think about one of my cats doing this, and I keep smiling and laughing at it because I'm trying to picture one of my cats running around this huge freaking space station that's now sentient, that's trying to keep things going. And just yeah, like forever she wasn't able to talk. She didn't have a translation program. One of the AIs helped her out with that. So anytime someone would call up, she had a bell she would ring, because she's like, if I meow, they think they don't understand what's going on. So she just rings. They're like, we need help, whatever. Ding. It's like, okay, I guess we're gonna get the help we need. And then giant laser from the sky like shoots down and kills whatever it is that's attacking this little post-apocalyptic town they have. But it's an interesting book. I see where the humor is coming from, because like I said, it is a post-apocalyptic. In any other setting, it would be like, man, this is kind of dark and everything else, but it's just very lighthearted because, like I said, it's a cat. So, whatever. Yeah, I'm so far I'm enjoying it. I think I'm going to have to give it another listen to decide how much I actually like it, whether or not I would recommend it for the show. But yeah, it might be an interesting read just to be like, what? So, because we all have cats, so that might be kind of fun too. So anyway, that's what I've been reading. So, well, that's our show for the month, ladies and gentlemen. If you would please give us a follow on our, wherever it is you can find us on Google, Stitcher. I don't know if I've announced it on this show yet. So Stitcher is going away. Actually, by the time you listen to this, it may have already gone away. So if you're no longer listening to this on Stitcher, if you are, you need to find something else to listen to on. Unless someone reaches out, I am not going to put it on the new service that's kind of replacing it, because it was a nightmare to get it on Stitcher in the first place. But pretty much any podcast, catcher that you use, you can find the show. So you can find us at Epically Geeky, where you can find the other shows we do, including the Creatively Geeky, Epically Geeky, and Sustainably Geeky shows. You can find us. I'm getting a little better on posting a few things here and there on social media, to include Facebook and Instagram, and now X. Stupid. Anyway, it's such a nightmare. Anyway, talk about circling the drain. Where can we find you online, Ray?
Well, before you do that, do we want to announce what the next book is, just to make sure?
That's a smart man right there, because I even have it in the notes and I completely skipped it. So yeah, our next two books actually for our book for August is number 1 in customer service, The Complete Adventures of Tom Stranger. That is your pick, right, Shaun?
Yep.
And then September's book is How to Do Nothing by Jenny Odell, and that is Jennifer's book. So let's see what we're in for there. By the way, if you have not listened to the newest episode of Sustainably Geeky, I want to say it is the newest episode of Sustainably Geeky. She has a very smart gentleman on, and she's talking to him, and she asked him if there's anything he has to recommend or whatever, and he recommended The Overstory. No. And as I'm listening to it, I just started laughing. I'm like, is she going to say anything? Is she going to say anything? And sure enough, she goes, yeah, we listened to that on one of my other shows, and the majority of the rest of my group didn't enjoy it. I think as much as you did. She was very, she was very nice about it, not telling the guy. But yeah, apparently, it is actually really big in that community. Like everyone in that community is just like falling over it. So, just wrong book for the wrong people. So I just thought it was funny that because I was like, "Are you gonna say anything? Are you gonna say anything?" Yeah, she did. So I was like, "Good on you, Jen." So, all right, Ray, where can we find you online?
The Reluctant Yeti on Instagram. I don't go on X, but I am on Threads, so you can find me there.
There you go. I guess I got to start adding that to the list. So, Kris,
what's X?
Twitter.
That's Twitter.
What?
They are
Yeah,
reading it.
we'll talk about it after the show.
Oh, okay. Anyway, not there, but you can Instagram at Moody Midlife, and I'm also on Threads, but I don't understand it. So
We'll talk about it after the show. Shaun.
Screwing with Wikipedia, usually. And your favorite broken toy on Instagram.
And as always, you can follow my individual wacky adventure online at Optimus Chain on Facebook, Instagram, X, Threads. God, it's so weird saying this stuff. Anyway, for everyone on the site, have a good night.